Howdy, everyone. All right, so like what has happened in the past, I start a project, I move on to other things, and then I come back and I can't quite remember where I had left off. So this is going to be another one of those kind of catch me up videos. So if I've covered a lot of this before, I apologize up front. All right, so I'm working in the front of the cockpit. This is the firewall here, and I'm working on this piece here mostly. This piece and the wood, the plywood cover that I'm making to go over top of it. This is the stock piece from Vans, and what I have done, I've laid out the fuel pump and the fuel valve, which attaches up here, just to get an idea of where the fuel pump is going to lay. And then I marked those locations to mount the pump. And then I went ahead and I put some leftover J-channel underneath. So these rivets hold the J-channel in place, and they also hold the nut plates in place for the boost pump to screw into. So there's a piece of J-channel under here, and there's a piece of J-channel under there. That just provides support to this piece because that pump assembly is pretty heavy, and it will make this piece sag. So I went ahead and added the J-channel. After I had the J-channel in place and I can get the pump laid out, then I went ahead and I added these little L brackets that you see. These are riveted to the plate, and they have nut plates on them so that I can screw on my plywood cover. The front area here, or actually this would be the rear area of this section of the cockpit. This is the back side. The piece that goes in here, I don't remember what the part number is, but it's the Vans piece that comes out, and that's where you mount your fuel selector valve onto. That, the only thing that I'm using from that are the mounting flanges. So there's a flange here and a flange here of that piece. I'll show you that in a minute, but I basically just cut the flanges off and I'm using the flanges. The rest of that piece I got rid of. And also on this base plate here, there's an angle that comes up here that had some holes in it that you use to mount this piece to. Since I'm not using this piece, I cut that angle off, so now this is smooth. All right, so over here at the workbench, this is the fuel pump assembly here. And like I said, this is my boost pump assembly. This is a pretty heavy unit, so I had those J channels going underneath at these locations here to support that piece because this is pretty stout. And then I just run screws down through these mounting holes into that plate that I just showed you with the J channel and the nut plates. So that's how this mounts. These are the angles that I had cut from the original Vans piece in that rear area where the fuel selector valve mounts that piece. I cut these flanges off of that piece and I got rid of the rest of it. And then I added these nut plates here, which is going to mount my plywood cover. Now I've got the plywood cover here. I've got some more epoxy drying. That's why it's upside down. But there's my fuel valve. That wood block is basically nothing more than a spacer, and it also acts as a stiffener for this plywood. The plywood is 1/8 inch. This is just held in here temporarily with a couple of bolts, but ultimately this block will get epoxied onto this plate. And you can see I've got T-nuts epoxied in various places for mounting this whole thing, screwing this whole thing together, which I'll get to in a minute. But I really like the T-nuts. I use T-nuts a lot on wood. And then let me see if I can flip this around one-handed without knocking something loose. So this is the box so far. when you build a box, if you decide to build a box, there's a lot of stuff you have to consider. You have to consider the fuel valve is going to be mounted here, and it's got fuel lines connected to it. So you need to have a way to separate this cover from the rest of the box. Same thing here. I've incorporated my manual elevator trim. And again, this is going to have a cable inside. If you can imagine, the cable comes down, wraps around, and comes back out. You need to provide a way for this panel to be disconnected from the rest of the box. So the way that I have this set up, if you can imagine this being in the airplane, this is aft, this is forward, so the firewall is up here. If you can imagine this in the plane, this has got fuel lines connected to it. This has got a cable connected to it, so these basically can't come out. But if you needed to get into here to play with your boost pump or to troubleshoot an issue, fix a leak, whatever it is, you need to be able to take this off. So the way that I have this designed is you just take these screws out. These are the screws that go into those T-nuts that I showed you a minute ago. Take the screws off, and then these panels stay put. And then this part here just kind of slides back and up out of the way, which will expose the boost pump, which is underneath. I've incorporated a couple of cup holders. You can see that this top plate is recessed a little bit. There's a lip here that goes all the way around. So the thought is that you can have drinks in here, and if you're not using drinks, you can lay your iPhone or any kind of electronics up here in this tray and then plug them into here. This is a USB charging port that I'll be hooking up. So that's kind of the thought behind that. This again is my fuel valve, my fuel selector valve, temporarily held in place with a couple of bolts. I'm going to get some countersunk bolts to replace these so that this will be flush. And then, where'd it go? Then I can mount my plate over top. So of course with the countersunk screws, this will sit flush on here. So that's kind of the idea I've got so far. Now I'm planning on potentially putting my push-pull cable for my cabin heat here, but that may not work out. I don't have the cable yet. Depending on how much of a straight run it needs, it may not fit here because it will interfere as it goes into here. It may I may run into some interference problems inside here with how I have this built for the cup holder. So if that doesn't work, I'll have to put it somewhere else, and this will stay like it is. But if I can get it to work, I'm going to put my cabin heat cable up here in this corner. I've got 3 holes in the unit. I've got a hole here, I've got a hole here, and I've got a matching hole like this on the other side. Those are going to be for these LED lights that I'm going to be putting in. These fit right into the hole. You can get these in various colors, but I wanted something in here so that the footwell area of the airplane, if you want to call it that, this forward area of the airplane here, I wanted some light in here. Those 3 ultimately will be on some kind of a switch so I can manually turn them on and off, but I just wanted light in here. If you're fooling with a drink or you're charging your phone or something, you drop something, whatever, you need some light in here to find it. I wanted some light in here. So I'm putting those 3 LEDs on this center console. So let me drop this in real quick into the airplane, and then I'll come back and show you how it all fits together.